Have you ever noticed how some women don't flirt in a direct way? Instead, they check your awareness quietly, especially when you are a man over 50. Women act differently around you. They do not want to appear needy. They do not want to seem too easy. So they ask certain things instead. And here is what most men do not understand. A woman who feels drawn to an older man will almost always ask two very specific questions. It is like a message hidden in plain sight. Let me ask you something, and I want you to be honest with yourself. How many times have you walked away from a conversation thinking she was just being polite, only to realize later that something about her energy felt different? Maybe she lingered a little longer than necessary. Maybe her questions felt slightly more personal. Maybe there was a softness in her tone that you couldn't quite explain, and only hours or days later it hit you. That wasn't just friendliness. That was interest. That was an opening. That was a moment you didn't recognize when it mattered most. This is where most men miss it. Not because they lack intelligence, but because they are looking for the wrong signals. They are looking for obvious signs, clear statements, direct invitations. But feminine psychology rarely works that way, especially with emotionally mature women, and especially around men they genuinely respect. Women rarely show interest openly. They test your emotional calm, your presence, and your ability to notice small details. And when a woman begins to view you as someone she can trust, her energy shifts from casual conversation to intentional curiosity. That is exactly when the two key questions appear. If that's something you need to understand, hit subscribe right now and stay with me all the way to the end. Because the final section of this video contains the one shift that separates the men women keep thinking about from the men they let fade. Let's begin. 1. Presence over performance, what she actually tests. Let's start here, because this is the truth that makes everything else in this video actually work. And it's the truth that most men, even after understanding the questions themselves, still miss in practice. A woman is not only listening to what you say, she is feeling who you are while you say it. And if your energy doesn't match your words, she feels that immediately. Not logically, intuitively. Because feminine awareness is not logical first. It is intuitive first. She reads your pauses, your eye contact, your stillness, your comfort in the moment. She reads whether you are genuinely present, or whether you are performing presence while being somewhere else entirely. Have you ever seen a man say something confident, but it didn't feel real? He says, "I'm open to meeting someone," but his tone is flat, his body is closed, his eyes avoid connection. Or he says, "I know what I want," but there is hesitation in his voice, like he is trying to convince himself more than anyone else. Women pick up on that, not consciously, emotionally. And once they feel the mismatch, something closes in them. The psychologist Carl Jung wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." The reaction she is looking for is not impressive words. It is the experience of being near someone who is genuinely himself, grounded, warm, unhurried, clear. Someone whose energy matches what he says. Here's something I want you to reflect on honestly. Think about the moments in conversations where you felt most natural, most actually yourself. Were you performing something in those moments? Or were you simply present? Because I've observed consistently that the interactions women remember most are almost never the ones where the man was at his most polished. They're the ones where he was most genuinely there. Here's what I want you to practice. Before your next significant conversation, take one full breath and make one internal decision. Not what should I say, but I'm going to be fully here for this. That single decision changes the quality of everything that follows. A woman doesn't test your words. She tests your presence. And now, let's look at exactly where that presence is tested most directly, in the two questions she uses to quietly open a door. 2. The second question, what are you looking for these days? This question changes everything. And if you've ever been asked it, I want you to think back honestly about how you answered. Did you say something vague like, "I'm just taking things day by day"? Or, "I don't really know right now"? Or maybe, "I'm just looking for peace"? I understand why men say these things. They want to appear relaxed, easygoing, uncomplicated. But here is what she actually hears. She hears uncertainty. She hears lack of direction. She hears emotional drift. And the moment she feels that, something inside her steps back. Because women are not drawn to confusion. They are drawn to clarity. This question is her way of checking your inner compass. She is asking herself, if I step into this man's life, where is he going? Will I feel led or lost? Will I feel secure or uncertain? And here is the truth most men over 50 never fully realize. At this stage of life, direction is more attractive than almost anything else. Not money, not status, not even appearance. Direction. Because direction signals emotional stability. It signals that you are genuinely alive inside, that you are building something, moving towards something, oriented towards something real. The philosopher Viktor Frankl wrote, "Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how." A man who has a clear why, who can communicate his direction with calm certainty, gives her something to orient herself toward. A man who is still figuring out his why gives her nothing stable to step toward. Here's what I want you to be honest about. If she asked you this question tonight, what would you actually say? Do you have a genuine answer that comes from a grounded sense of who you are and what you're building? Or would you reach for something vague because the real answer still feels unclear? Here's what I want you to practice. This week, before any significant conversation, clarify your own direction privately. Not for anyone else. For yourself. What are you actually focused on building? What kind of connection genuinely matters to you at this stage? When you know that clearly, your answer to her question arrives without hesitation. And that lack of hesitation is itself the signal she was testing for. You might say something like, "I'm at a stage where I value connection that feels natural and real." Or, "I'm building a simpler, stronger chapter, and I'm open to the right person being part of it."
Calm.
Grounded.
Clear.
Without being heavy. And those answers invite her in, without chasing her. Because now she can imagine herself in your life. She can feel possibility. She can sense that being near you would feel like steadiness, not confusion. She asked about your direction because she was deciding whether to take a step toward you. Now, let's look at the question that came before it. The one that most men answer completely incorrectly without realizing what they just communicated. 3. The first question. Do you spend a lot of time alone? It sounds casual, almost forgettable. The kind of question that could pass through a conversation without leaving any mark. But this is where everything begins. Because when a woman asks you this, she is not asking about your schedule. She is asking something much deeper, much more personal, and much more revealing. She is asking, is there space for me in your world? Not physically. Emotionally. Is your life open or closed? Are you someone who can genuinely connect, or someone who has built walls inside routines and habits that leave no real room for another person? Think about the psychology beneath it. A woman is naturally wired to protect her emotional energy. She does not want to invest herself in a man who is unavailable or emotionally closed. Especially with older men, she assumes there might already be a full life, set routines, habits, maybe even emotional walls built gradually over time. So instead of asking directly, "Do you have room for me?" she softens it. She disguises it. She asks, "Do you spend a lot of time alone?" Let me give you a real example that captures exactly how this can go wrong. A man in his late 50s told me about a conversation he had with a woman he felt genuinely connected to. They talked easily. She laughed at his stories. She stayed close. And then she asked him that exact question. He answered honestly but without awareness. He said, "Yeah, I mostly keep to myself these days. I like my routine. I don't really go out much." And in that moment, something shifted in her. He didn't notice right away. But her energy became slightly more distant. The conversation faded. And later, he wondered what went wrong. Nothing went wrong in the obvious sense. But everything went wrong emotionally. Because what she heard was not independence. She heard, "There's no space for you here." She felt he's closed. And attraction quietly dissolved. The psychologist Abraham Maslow wrote, "What a man can be, he must be." A man who has fully become himself, who has built a life he is genuinely satisfied with, does not need to guard that life defensively. He can share it openly because he is secure in it. And that security reads as openness rather than closure. Here's what I want you to do with this. The next time someone asks you something like this, pause for half a second. Not out of hesitation, but out of presence. Feel the moment. And then respond in a way that communicates both structure and space. Something like, "I enjoy my own company, but I genuinely appreciate good company when it shows up." Or, "I've built a life I'm comfortable in, and I'm open to sharing it with the right person."
Feel the difference in that.
You're not chasing. You are not performing availability. You are simply showing that your world has both integrity and room. And that combination, a man who is content but not closed, is exactly what she was hoping to find when she asked. She tested for openness. Now, let's look at the 3 specific ways men fail these tests, even when they know the questions are coming. 4. The 3 subtle mistakes that quietly end the moment. Understanding the questions is only half of it. Because a woman doesn't just hear your answer. She feels your energy while you're giving it. And there are three patterns that destroy the moment, even when the words themselves are technically fine. The first is over-explaining. She asks, "What are you looking for these days?" And the man gives a long, detailed answer. He talks about his past, his experiences, everything he's learned. And while it may all be true, it feels heavy. It feels like pressure. It feels like emotional weight she didn't ask to carry. Because attraction thrives in clarity, not complexity. A grounded man doesn't explain his entire life. He expresses his direction. There is a significant difference between those two things. The second is emotional closure disguised as strength. Some men think being reserved makes them appear strong. So when she asks, "Do you spend a lot of time alone?" they respond in a way that feels distant. "Yes, I prefer to be alone. I don't really need anyone. I'm fine on my own." On the surface, that might sound independent, but emotionally, it feels like a closed door. And a woman does not move toward a closed door. She may respect the man behind it, but she will not feel invited. Real strength is not emotional distance. Real strength is openness without neediness. That is a rare and powerful combination, and it is what she is actually testing for. The third mistake is uncertainty. When she asks, "What are you looking for?" and the man says, "I don't know yet," or "I'm just seeing what happens," what she feels is instability. Not because uncertainty is shameful, but because at this stage of life, she expects a man to have a sense of direction. She doesn't need a perfect plan. She needs a grounded center. And when she doesn't feel one, she withdraws. The psychologist Daniel Goleman wrote, "Emotional intelligence is the sine qua non of leadership." Avoiding these three mistakes is a form of emotional intelligence. It is the capacity to understand what the moment actually requires from you, and to show up with that quality rather than with whatever your anxiety reaches for by default. Here's what I want you to notice about these three mistakes. They all come from the same root, responding from the inside of your own anxiety rather than from genuine presence with her. The man who has done the internal work, who knows his direction, who is comfortable in his life, who doesn't need to perform or deflect, doesn't make any of these mistakes. Not because he's practiced them away, but because the grounded center that she's testing for is genuinely there. Now, let's look at how feminine psychology constructs these tests in the first place, and why understanding the deeper pattern changes how you experience every interaction. 5. Why feminine psychology hides attraction inside questions. Feminine psychology is layered in a way that most men, raised in a culture of direct communication, never fully account for. Women use questions the way men use actions. When a man is drawn to someone, he moves closer. He offers help. He creates structure. When a woman is drawn to someone, she creates emotional openings. And those openings almost always come disguised as simple questions. She is not asking because she is gathering information. She is asking because she wants to feel something. She wants to sense your emotional warmth, your groundedness, your presence. She is asking herself, is he calm? Is he steady? Is he open to connection? Can I step closer without feeling pushed away? These questions are not about facts. They are about connection. They are emotional bridges, placed carefully between you and her, to see if you step onto them with presence or walk right past them without noticing. And here is the truth most men never hear clearly enough. Women rarely present the same emotional invitation twice. If you miss the moment she opened a door, she usually will not open it again. Not because she is playing games, but because once she feels unseen, something inside her closes. She tells herself, he's not aware. He's not available. He's not the man I thought he might be. And just like that, the opportunity passes. The psychologist Carl Rogers wrote, "When someone really hears you without passing judgment on you, it feels damn good." What she is testing for, beneath every question, beneath every moment of intentional curiosity, is whether you can hear what she is actually saying. Not the surface words, the emotional meaning beneath them. And the man who can hear that, who can sense the invitation inside an ordinary question and meet it with genuine presence, is the man she keeps thinking about long after the conversation ends. Here's what I want you to practice. The next time a woman asks you something that seems simple but feels slightly personal, before you answer, pause and ask yourself one quiet question. Why is she asking this now? What changed in her tone when she said it? What is she actually reaching toward with this question? And then let your answer come from that awareness rather than from the automatic surface of habit. That shift from answering questions to reading intent is what changes everything. Now, let's bring all of this together in the final and most important piece. 6. How to become the man she doesn't question. She simply feels. Here is where most men think the work is done. They hear the two questions. They understand the meaning. They even prepare responses. And yet, they still lose the moment. Not because they said the wrong words, but because something deeper didn't align. The real shift is this. You stop answering questions, and you start reading intent. You stop focusing on saying the right thing, and you start focusing on feeling the moment. Because attraction at this stage of life is not about doing, it is about being. Being grounded, being aware, being emotionally available without losing your center. Picture the next time you're in a conversation with a woman, not forcing anything, not trying to impress, just genuinely present. She asks, "Do you spend a lot of time alone?" Before you answer, you pause for half a second. Not out of hesitation, out of presence. You feel the moment. You look at her calmly, and you say, "I enjoy my space, but I also appreciate good company when it feels right." Simple, grounded, open. She doesn't just hear something. She feels something. Later she asks, "What are you looking for these days?" Again, you don't rush. You don't overthink. You stay in your own body, and you say, "I'm at a stage where I value real connection, something that feels natural and meaningful." And in that moment, something shifts. Because now she feels like she understands you. She feels like she can trust what you're saying, because it matches how you're being. The philosopher Epictetus wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." The man who has mastered his own emotional center, who is comfortable with who he is and where he is going, communicates that mastery not through what he says but through the quality of his presence. And once a woman feels that quality, she stops questioning whether you're the right person. She simply feels that you are. Here's the one practical shift I want you to carry with you from everything we've covered. The next time a woman asks you one of these questions, after you answer, hold eye contact for just a second longer than usual. Don't say anything. Just be there. Because in that moment you are doing something powerful. You are allowing her to feel what she just opened. You are not rushing to fill the silence. You are not escaping the moment. You are staying inside it. And that is where attraction deepens, not in words, but in presence. Women don't fall for what you say. They fall for how they feel when they are with you. And those two simple questions, they are not tests to pass. They are doors. And now you know exactly when they open. The next time a woman looks at you with that particular softness and asks you something that seems simple, pause. Feel it. Listen beyond the words. Because that might not be just a question. That might be an invitation. And whether that door opens or quietly closes will depend on one thing: your awareness. If this gave you a new perspective, take a moment right now and like the video. And in the comments, write, "I see the signs," because I want to know not just that you watched this, but that you understood it. And if you know a man who keeps missing these moments, share this with him. Because sometimes one shift in awareness changes everything. I want to hear from you. Has there been a moment in your past where you look back now and realize a woman was opening a door you didn't see at the time? Drop it in the comments below. I read every single one, and I will personally reach out to some of you. Subscribe if you haven't already, because the more you understand this, the less you will ever have to chase anything again. Because attraction isn't about chasing. It's about becoming the man who is worth stepping toward. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. It genuinely means everything to me. I'll see you in the next video. Take care of yourself.